Hello, Marvelites. I'm Josh Soleil, and this is Marvel Live. Today, we're celebrating the release of Kitty Pryde and Lockheed in Marvel Strike Force. Marvel Strike Force is a game where you can collect your favorite Marvel characters across the multiverse and battle to save Earth. And today, we're getting into it, and I cannot wait. You can download Marvel Strike Force right now for free on iOS and Android. In this show, we'll meet and chat with two creators that help bring Kitty Pryde and Lockheed into Marvel Strike Force. Then we'll meet a cosplay team who brought the game's cosplay into real-life form. But first, let's see some Kitty Pryde and Lockheed gameplay. Right here, you see Shadow Cat Strike. At level 1, it attacks the primary target for 60% damage. Then Lockheed comes in as the next attack for the Lockheed Blast. Attacks all enemies for 80% damage. Mischievous Sprite, famous attack from Kitty Pryde, going through floors. Attacks the primary target for 100% damage. It cannot be blocked, and it is unavoidable. There she goes again. I absolutely love that because it's Kitty Pryde's famous move, phasing through walls and floors. And here we go. We're going to welcome some game developers who helped create Kitty Pryde and Lockheed into Marvel Strike Force. Please welcome Marissa Huckaluck, the Marvel Strike Force 3D animator, and Chris Aguirre Samaniego, Marvel Strike Force technical artist. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's start with you, Marissa. What do you do at Marvel Strike Force, and how long have you worked for Marvel Strike Force?
Well, I am the 3D animator and had the privilege of working on Kitty Pryde and Lockheed, and currently been there for over 2 years. It's been an absolute blast and so many adventures along the way.
I love that. I love that. Chris, same question to you.
Hey, technical artist over on Marvel Strike Force. Probably been here about a year and a half, a little less than 2 years.
Yes, I love to see that. Love to hear that. Now, Chris, take us through the process of creating these characters from the composite sketches all the way to seeing them in game.
Yeah, so once the concept artist has the image, we all get together in a room. The whole team gets together, and we all just start shooting ideas at each other about what we think would do the character the most justice from a comic book perspective. How do we bring this character to life and do it? Just try to do it justice for everyone, really, is what we try.
Marissa, now coming on your end, what is the process like for your side?
For my side, it's once everything has been put together and we have like a skeleton inside the character, I make sure that that is all fully functional, and now I am a puppeteer able to move the character to the best that I can and start making them move to how we would take our reference from comics and try our best to bring the character to how we would interpret it into the game and into Marvel Strike Force. And it's honestly all trial and error, but it's a lot of fun and interesting challenges along the way.
Now, you mentioned comics. Now, Marvel Comics has such a rich history. Where do you start with pulling references from that to put into your work?
Honestly, just everywhere that I can. We look up all of the history of a character, and in this case it would be Kitty Pryde and Lockheed, and so we try to see like how did she get her start in the universe, and like where did her powers grow, and how did she become what she is, and all her different variants, and it's that just kind of go from there.
Absolutely. Now, Chris, same question to you. With all of Marvel Comics' rich history, where do you start?
Always the comics for sure is where I start, and then I start to look at actual artist renditions from like actual fans and seeing what they think their interpretations of their powers are and their abilities, and we start to take that into consideration as well, but obviously staying true to the comic book form.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Marissa, you worked primarily on Kitty's animations, and we have videos that show some behind the scenes of that. Talk us through that process and what the goal of that is.
Sure thing. So the behind the scenes for this is started off with just trying to get an idea for where Lockheed might come in, and that starts off with like just bringing in a little orb and doing the best that we can, and after that it becomes iteration after iteration until eventually we just end up getting to the polish pass, and the polish pass is what you end up seeing in game, and sometimes where we start and where we end up are nowhere in the same, and you just kind of roll with the punches.
Absolutely. That's so funny. Now, Chris, your team animated a literal dragon, which I think is so fascinating and amazing. What are some challenges that you face when creating the movements and maybe the modeling for animators to be able to bring Lockheed to life?
Oh man, well, first we have to lay out the skeleton for the creature itself. And since there's no literal dragon that exists in the real world, we kind of have to take reference from other animals out there, like birds and stuff like that. And luckily, there's other shows out there, I'm sure you know many, that have dragons that we can take reference from as well. But here, what you're looking at is the actual, all those little veins in the middle of the body are the joints themselves, the actual physical skeleton that dictates how the mesh, the 3D model itself gets deformed. So all those individual joints control a very small specific area of skin or geometry that actually gets deformed and moved around. So that's actually what you're seeing in game when you're animating, is all those joints moving around. And here you see all these little tiny controls around the body, and here we're actually manipulating those. Instead of having the animator select those individual joints, which can be a little hard to pick apart, we create these unique little controllers around the body that actually manipulate those. So kind of like a little constraint, if you will. And here you can see we could move the hand around, we can twist the fingers, make a fist, etc. And every part of that body has unique controls that allow for the animator to kind of just exercise whatever's in their mind. So here you're seeing a nice little tail control here that moves all the individual joints of the tail. And there's also has individual control of each individual tiny joint as well, instead of all at once.
Oh man, you must have to be so precise in that. Well, now that Kitty and Lockheed are available for Marvel Strike Force players everywhere, Marissa, how does it feel seeing them in game?
It's always really, really cool to see how everything kind of comes together as a team. Like, you start off with concept and we come at the end with VFX and audio. It's a huge team effort, and being able to see her come to life and have people just kind of take her in and be like, yeah, this is my character. I love seeing my character in game. And it really brings me a lot of happiness and a lot of joy to do stuff like this.
Same thing as Marissa, man. It's super humbling to be able to do what we do and to see our work put out there and people enjoying it. Not only that, but this is like kind of a childhood dream for a lot of us. You know, we get to work on all the characters that we grew up with. You know, Kitty Pryde, definitely, you know, part of the X-Men and all that is the show that I grew up with in the 90s. So it's super humbling, super awesome.
Yes, I love it because you both are fans, and being able to create these characters into Marvel Strike Force is such like a fan dreams for so many people, and you're living it. Well, thank you so much, Marissa and Chris, for all that you've done and bringing these two characters to life into Marvel Strike Force. Well, we're going to go ahead and switch some gears, y'all, from creating Marvel characters in Marvel Strike Force to now creating Marvel cosplay in real life. We're going to watch two incredible designers recreate Marvel Strike Force design for Kitty Pryde and Lockheed in real-life cosplay form. And stick around after for a Q&A with those amazing creators are going to be here with us on an episode of Marvel Becoming. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Lizard Lee, and today I'm becoming Kitty Pryde from Marvel Strike Force. I think the thing that's so great about Kitty Pryde is that the world of the X-Men is this really kind of fantastic world, you know, where there's mutants and there's superpowers. And I think Kitty walks in and is kind of just a girl, making her own choices and staying true to herself. Who can't relate to that? I always thought that the coolest superpower would be the ability to control the state of your atoms. Kitty Pryde happens to be the superhero that has that power. That is, for me, the reason why I love Kitty Pryde so much, just as a physics nerd. Her costume is so iconic, and I really loved the redesign that Strike Force did that had all the kind of details that made it more visually interesting. Where I start with making any costume is always with a mock-up. Starting with a pattern or drafting my own pattern, then I can start working with the fashion fabric. And in this case, we were working with very difficult fabrics. For me, it was really just a balance of trying to figure out how I could get it as close to this costume that was designed to exist in a game versus something that exists in real life. I was actually really thrilled when Marvel said that I could have the opportunity to work with my good friend Marcy on this project, because they are someone who, frankly, I was already going to be leaning on a lot for this build.
The planning stage was kind of us sitting down and going, okay, you know, what are we both good at? What things do we need each other for?
I focused on all the things that I was going to be wearing that needed to be fitted to me, which is the leotard, the pants, and also the wig.
I am really good with prop making, 3D printing. We decided I would take on a lot more of the kind of peripheral and accessory parts, like the gloves and the boots.
And it made it so much easier to not have the fullness of that costume facing me, that I could say, I don't need to worry about the gloves and the boots. Marcy's a pro, they've got it. When Lockheed was brought up, I was initially like, oh gosh, making a full Lockheed puppet, that's a big ask. Lockheed would be built by someone who's way more skilled in puppetry and all those kinds of things.
They say, we have this project you want to make. I immediately jumped on the challenge. I really wanted to do it. I took the reference images and I started looking up Lockheed from the comics. And I just kind of started putting the pieces together. I sculpted the dragon out of clay. And then I was going to build a stone mold. And then I was going to dwell it with a neoprene rubber. So that way I could then build the animatronics on the inside. Working with Lee was absolutely fantastic. We really supported each other.
It was great to see the kind of beginning molds of Lockheed, and then I would send him photos of here's how the costume is coming along.
To see everything come together is the best feeling in the world, especially when a whole team has worked on it together.
I just think that Kitty Pryde Spotlight is so completely overdue, and I'm super excited to see her being in Strike Force now. I'm really hyped to be part of that group of people saying, hey, get on the Kitty Pryde bandwagon.
Well, let's welcome Lizard Lee, cosplayer and designer, and Scott Pope, prop maker. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being a part of this. Amazing job with that Marvel Becoming episode, and an incredible job bringing these characters to life. Now, it must have been extremely difficult, especially during the pandemic. Lee, let's start with you. Can you tell me more about, the challenges you faced when making this unbelievable cosplay?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was such a struggle making sure that we could get all of the materials in our hands. And definitely this process that was a collaboration with my friend Marcy. Usually we would maybe have time to get together and work in person, but because it was a pandemic, we definitely did most of our collaboration kind of via just texting each other frequently instead of being able to work in the same space. Yeah. Really just, we had to make sure that we were on top of our timeline and we had all of our materials and we weren't doing any unnecessary errands. I'm really proud of all of the materials that we ended up pulling together, but it was definitely a struggle sourcing all those really specific yellows and blues. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Thank you.
Oh, I definitely faced several challenges working on Lockheed for this, Lockheed, excuse me. One, definitely, I'm used to working with a team of talented individuals on many of the projects that I work on. So doing this alone and in isolation was certainly one of the major challenges. Getting materials shipped during a pandemic to my home shop was definitely a challenge. Having materials that, failed because of shelf life issues and having to switch gears rapidly again, and then having new materials shipped out, because of, the working at home conditions was certainly a challenge, but it was something that I worked through and we got it done on time. So that was really great.
Now, Lee, I want to go into detail on the leotard and the wig. You were mentioning that you worked with a lot of difficult fabrics. What was it like working with those?
Oh my gosh. Basically fabric like this, I knew that I just had to budget so much extra time because usually when you're sewing fabric, I'm someone who works with pinning the layers together, but because this was basically all pleather, if I used pins, it would show holes in it that wouldn't just heal up the way that a standard fabric will. So I basically had to use clips on the majority of the fabric, the black fabric, the blue fabric, the yellow fabric. It took so long because to get everything to fit right, the pieces had to match up totally perfectly. There was very little room for error. I couldn't reuse a piece if I sewed it wrong. So I really had to just work very consistently on it.
Oh man, you couldn't reuse a piece? That would give me so much pressure. Way to go, or work under pressure like that. Now, Scott, working on animatronics, making an actual dragon Lockheed, tell us more about Lockheed's functions, like the mouth moves. Can you tell us how you did that?
I ended up using a brake cable and a brake mechanism, like from a bicycle, an actual brake handle, and then I actually fed a wire up, through Lockheed's body using some link line, and I had to make my own custom, actual mouth that went inside him. That's actually made out of some plastic and some springs, and I had to custom make the actual mechanism that's inside him. and then kind of put them inside it before I molded it all together, then run the wires back down. And I would have loved to have had a chance to make several different versions of this, like you normally would do, but kind of had a limited timeline. But it all worked out in the end. So
both of you, Lee and Scott, thank you so much for being a part of this, and thank you so much for sharing your journey in creating those cosplays.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was such a joy to work together.
Yes,
awesome.
It was, absolutely.
Awesome, well, thank you. Now, fans of Marvel Strike Force can play as Kitty Pryde and Lockheed right now, and keep a lookout for the Jubilee Legendary Special event coming soon. Y'all can download Marvel Strike Force for free right now on iOS and Android. Thank you so much for watching, and this is Marvel, your universe.